Unfortunately, I can't offer a specific answer to the question that will meet everybody's needs, because there's no one perfect way to start a presentation. I'm going to tell you what you shouldn't do, and then give you the secret of a good beginning. You shouldn't start your presentation or speech the way most presenters do. Well, why is that? Because most presenters start off by talking about themselves. This is a critical moment in the presentation. And as a presenter, you have to make a fundamental choice. Are you going to focus on yourself or your audience? If you focus on your audience, you're going to be successful. If you focus on yourself, it almost doesn't matter how polished you are, you're likely to fail. What follows is a lesson of what not to do. Here I am giving a speech. Good morning. My name is T.J. Walker. Well, everybody already knows my name. I was introduced, so that's kind of boring, or it's on the agenda. I'm the CEO of Media Training Worldwide. Again, the audience knows that. I was introduced that way. It's on the agenda. I'm very happy to be here today. Well, why does the audience care about my happiness at this stage of the relationship? Before I begin, well, actually, I already started the second I opened my mouth. I'd like to tell you about the history of my company. Way back in 1984, well, why does anyone want to hear this boring history of my life at this point? Now, the problem with this approach is that everything the presenter is saying about himself is sort of boring, it's a cliche, it's irrelevant to the audience. He might eventually get to something interesting, but by then there's the real danger that half the audience has zoned out, fallen asleep, or gone to BlackBerry mode. Deep down, I'm an optimist, and I believe that most people are good-spirited. But I don't believe that audiences are terribly interested in the well-being of the presenter. So don't talk about, oh, I'm happy to be here today. It's not that people we speak to wish us ill will. It's just that they're focused on themselves, their lives, their careers. So the quicker we as speakers talk about them, the better off we are. What then is the best way to start a presentation? The secret. Talk about the audience's needs or desires right off the bat. Here's an example of how I start a presentation when I'm working with a small group of executives in a session on presentation training. So, why are we here? Jim, you mentioned that you're comfortable when you're sitting down presenting to a small group, but you get uncomfortable when you have to stand and talk to more than 20 people. We'll work on ways to overcome that. Sally, you mentioned that you don't mind talking to a room full of strangers, but you get really nervous talking in your weekly staff meetings. We'll come up with tips on how to get you comfortable there. Sandy, you feel like your PowerPoints are dragging you down. We'll learn some new ways to make PowerPoint add to your presentation. Now, you might be thinking that I haven't said anything particularly eloquent or brilliant in that sort of an opening, or that it's even that interesting. But I can assure you that Jim and Sally and Sandy find this opening incredibly interesting because I was talking about them. They're riveted to the presentation. Why? Because it's personal, and I've told them exactly what I'm going to do for them. Now, how did I get all of this inside information about the people I'm speaking to? Did I do Google searches, interview their assistants, spend 4 hours reading their profiles and their company website? No. All I did was have a 30-second conversation with each one of them 10 minutes before my presentation. I talked to them about their needs. I listened to their concerns, and I personalized the start. It's simple, and it's effective. The biggest hurdle most people face with this approach is that their speeches are written out in advance, including the beginning. They feel that if they don't have a start already prepared, they'll fumble and falter and fail. It's also difficult to know how to personalize your presentation if a speechwriter or corporate communications person created your speech for you. Speechwriters may prepare a beginning that's overly formal. Marketing experts may want you to start by listing your top 5 corporate messages. These are all mistakes. The technique I used works well with a small group of people or even just one person. But it also works well with an audience of 100 people. Obviously, you can't talk to 100 people before you start or reference what they all might say, but if you reference what 4 or 5 people in the room said, it will make the audience relate to you better and feel like you're giving them content that's fresh and relevant. It gives your presentation an uncanned quality, and they'll appreciate it. Even when you personalize your approach, there's no one ideal way to start a speech. It could be with a question, it could be with a funny story, but it doesn't have to be witty or clever as long as it's interesting and relevant to your audience. In my experience, audiences truly reward presenters who concentrate on the audience right from the beginning. And they will reward you with what really counts: their attention, their focus, and their positive memory of what you said.